Hey guys! Today's video is really about celebrating Monster Hunter Rise. It has been made very apparent that Rise is not a perfect game, and does have its faults, but even still Rise has done some amazing things that I don't really hear talked about a lot. One of the things that Rise did very well is with the design of the monsters. Back before Rise released, the dev team talked about how they had to overhaul the AI of all the monsters in the game, because the hunters have the ability to climb walls and hide in areas where the monster couldn't hit them. This and other factors really make the monsters in Rise feel like real creatures instead of just following a script. Anyways, all of this is just a long-winded way for me to say that this video is going to be me talking about my 5 favorite monsters in Rise. Before I get started, I wanted to give my honorable mentions now, so I can explain why they are not on this list. The honorable mentions are Chameleos, Magnamalo, and Crimson Glow Volstrax. These are all absolutely amazing examples of really fleshed out monsters. However, because of their status as flagship monsters and elder dragons, they get additional pampering for lack of a better word. These are the monsters that people are really meant to have an experience with, and because of that the devs basically kick them up to an 11. While these monsters are absolutely amazing, this list is going to focus on the monsters that don't get as much attention, but are still amazing and well-designed monsters.
When it swoops down on its prey, all becomes a blur.
The first monster that really deserves praise for their overhaul is Tobi-Kadachi. When World first came out, I unfortunately couldn't play it, and I watched a lot of streams of World. I remember watching the ecology video for Tobi-Kadachi, and was just dumbstruck about how cool it looked. And then a while later I was at a friend's house and played World, with the very first thing I fought being Tobi-Kadachi, and I was so overwhelmed with all the new changes and mechanics that I actually failed that quest. Eventually, after I was able to actually play the game, and got to Tobi-Kadachi, and I was a bit disappointed with the fight. In World, Tobi-Kadachi suffered from the same problem that I think Odogaron had, which is that the entire hunt just felt like the monster would circle around you for a bit, and then perform the same figure 8 move over and over, with very little variation. The reason that Tobi-Kadachi is on this list is because the Rise version of Tobi-Kadachi is just phenomenally made. The fight never feels stale, and I actually find it hard to predict the next attack it will do. The Rise version of Tobi-Kadachi basically gives Tobi almost all of Viper Tobi's moves, such as the feather projectile and the tackle move. Overall, hunting Tobi-Kadachi is just a fun experience, and it never feels like there is a dull moment, and that makes me really excited to see G-rank Tobi-Kadachi.
For this is its territory, and there is no admission.
The next monster I wanted to talk about is Bishaten, a monster introduced in Rise. Out of all the monsters in the game, Bishaten has the most personality. Bishaten just has so much detail put into his animations, like he will hold his nose if he uses a fruit that does poison or paralysis, or that he will cover his eyes when using the flash fruit, or even how he dances while throwing some fruit at you. Speaking of the fruit, I love monsters that use tools or items to attack you, and Bishaten is a great example of this. I love that Bishaten not only uses a variety of fruits to attack you, but that if you topple him you can collect the fruit and use it against Bishaten. I can't wait to see how Bishaten is improved in Sunbreak, especially when it comes to the fruit. It would be cool if AG rank Bishaten uses blast fruit or a sleep fruit. Out of all the monsters in Rise, I'm most excited to see if Bishaten gets a new variant, maybe a fire version, or something to fit with the wind theme. I also really like that with Bishaten the fight has no script at all, and it feels like all of his moves just seamlessly flow together, and can change at a moment's notice. And then, to top off such an impressively designed monster, the armor looks absolutely beautiful.
The beast hears all, returns irate.
As I had mentioned earlier, I'm a sucker for monsters that use tools, and Goss Harrig is no exception. Goss Harrig is a monster that you get a threatening vibe every time you see it. Even without the icy blades, it's a fun monster, but the fact that we have a monster that is able to fight hunters with a sword is just so cool. Before the game came out, I remember the Monster Hunter Twitter page showing off some of the concept art for Goss Harrig, and just thinking that the level of detail the devs had in designing this monster was so surreal, and then the actual fight just completely blew my expectations out of the water. Goss Harrig also has some of the best sound design in the Rise, and I will maintain that the single best sound in a Monster Hunter game is getting a wormstake on one of the ice weapons. Even though Goss Harrig is such a fun fight, the only critique I would have is that he feels like he follows a script too much. After he does the 2 ice beams and draws his swords, it feels very scripted after that point. The other thing I want to mention is that in high rank, when he gets the ice hammer, it's always on his left hand, which means Goss rarely attacks with it. For the G rank Goss, I want to see a different style, where Goss actually uses the different weapons he can make, and has different attacks depending on which weapon is on each hand. Both of these are pretty minor complaints, however, and are really completely outshadowed by how fun the Goss Harrig hunt is. I am really excited to see what new tools a G rank Goss Harrig will bring, maybe a shield, or even some kind of mock bow gun or something.
For those who get stuck, face a fate most dire.
So, this monster is going to sound like a really weird addition, mainly because most people hate this monster, or just find it annoying, but I absolutely love the rework that Juratoidus got. Much like Tobikadachi, Juratoidus was very much a pushover in World. However, in Rise, Juratoidus was completely reimagined to be such a fun fight. I remember that when I first got Rise, I was basically beside myself trying to get through the village so I could fight Juratoidus, which I then realized that in Rise it was a high-rank monster. When I finally got to the Juratoidus urgent quest, I actually failed that quest the first time I tried it, because of how many new things Juratoidus had. I really love how they were able to bring the mud mechanic that Juratoidus had in World and streamlined it. I also really love how they made it so that Juratoidus will actually try to trap you in the mud, and then hip check you while you're stuck. I also really love how Juratoidus has so much more weight behind its attack, and it feels like a high-tier version of it, even though it's still a mid-tier high-rank monster. Another one of the things I love is its new mover, where it will shoot a mud ball, and run away, and then repeat that 2 other times until it ends it off with a hip check, or another weighty move. Juratoidus armor and weapons are another aspect of the monster that looks amazing, and even though they had the bits on sticks design, it really fit well. Why they ever removed the Juratoidus gun lance in Rise is beyond me. I also can't wait for the G-rank Juratoidus armor, because it looks absolutely amazing. This kinda goes into a future video I want to make, but seeing the reworked Juratoidus really makes me wish that Lavaciath and Beatidus will get added to Sunbreak and get that same remodeling that Juratoidus got. In the case of Lavaciath, I would prefer Lavaciath being more like his old world version for the attacks, but keep the new world mechanics like the hard shell and stuff. Just like with Great Gyros, I could go on and on forever about how much I love Juratoidus, but there just isn't enough time in this video.
Her beloved children, always by her side. Share their mother's temper and her fiery pride.
The last monster I want to talk about today is Raknikadaki. This is the most detailed monster in the game, because of how many attacks it has and how it interacts with the Rachnoids. I'm probably going to be mobbed on or something for saying this, but I seriously prefer Raknikadaki to Nursilla. Raknikadaki feels much more adept with her web movements, and having a spider that is just completely immune to fire and is basically a walking flamethrower is a cool concept for me. There is also the added bonus of Raknikadaki having very humorous moves, like ones where she just throws her children at you, using them as grappling points, and even having a full-on child firing squad. And all of these features are just the tip of the iceberg. I think that it's really cool how Raknikadaki has a system where she is able to buff itself, whether that's through the web armor it wears, or even completely webbing up its abdomen to give itself a massive range and damage increase. Seeing the dynamic nature of this monster, its cool design including the armor and weapons, and how fun the fight is, really makes me think that Raknikadaki could have been a flagship monster. So, that was my list of my favorite monsters in Rise. As I mentioned earlier, all of these monsters and the potential they have really make me look forward to Sunbreak and seeing the G-rank version of all of them. This video is probably running on a bit longer than normal, but thank you for sticking around. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more like it, please consider supporting my channel. The next video I'm working on is going to be different from the normal Monster Hunter content I make, and it's probably going to come out this week instead of next Monday. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you then.